Well, I picked this up from Cooter's Place. It's $9.99 license plate. It's going on the back of my El Camino on one side of the tailgate. Be installing here in a second, but first I'm gonna hit it with some of this stuff. It's 2x ultra cover gloss clear, just so I chemically cleaned it first a little bit with didn't scuff it up, just chemically cleaned it with ether. And get my knife out of the way. This thing, I love this thing, man. Of course, it's got the flag on it. That's really what's the attraction. That'll make that paint last a lot longer, man. So, this shit's pretty good, man. Right, by the way, back in, I think it was the year 2000 or 2001, it was Governor Jeb Bush of the state of Florida that took the Confederate flag off the capital of the state of Florida. Jeb Bush, a Republican. See what I mean? They're a bunch of fakes. Just like we got this Rick Scott guy today. I don't know where the hell he came from. He's another crook, man. Bunch of garbage. Like, see, you know, division, yeah. You know what? I like this design, even though this wasn't anything that flew in any battles. But it really portrays more exactly what it's about. Don't tread on me, the Gadsden snake. And it's, well, that's kind of hinting at what it's about, but you know, it's about not just about states' rights, but it's about self-government, to be represented in government with taxation. That's, you know, if you want the taxes to be levied and you want the taxes to be spent a certain way, well, that's what you call a fair representation. You know, when the North freaking taxed the crap out of the South, the 80 to 90% of the taxes were coming into the federal coffers from the South, and it was all going up to the northern manufacturers. Well, you know, if you believe in that, then you don't like this flag, okay? But you know, that's what it is. Anyway, I got her up there. It's a license plate on the back of my El Camino. See it right there. So it's up in the air right now because we're got these extremely rusty bolts. We're taking a gas tank out of it to change the sending unit, and I'm taking my time putting PB Blaster on those bolts. I'm using the air compressor with the impact. It's like I've been in there 40 years. So that's the back of my El Camino right now. And you know, I like this one with the Gadsden flag on it, with the rebel Confederate flag, because it really does display exactly what the heck it's about. It's about the government shitting on you. And it was either in 2000 or 2001 that was Jeb Bush that took down the Confederate flag off the state capitol in Florida, which tells you exactly what that piece of crap's about. He's about on line with freaking Rick Scott. He's another piece of crap that came from outside the state to secure the office so he could freaking play his good old boy money records. Yeah, it looks like this needs to. And of course, I'm a member of the Confederate veterans. You know, as far as you know, a lot of people call this about heritage, and I really like this flag, even though this flag never flew over any battle in the Confederacy. I like this flag better when it says "Don't tread on me," because I don't really, you know, heritage is one thing. There's Southern heritage, there's rural Southern heritage, there's agricultural heritage, and actually, where I grew up was 11 miles from freaking Manhattan, New York City. So, you know, even though I liked the country and I liked up in New Hampshire, to live free or die state, you know, I could say I got way more freaking city experience than any kind of country experience by far. But, you know, mechanical experience, I could do that, because that's good old boy. That's an overlap between rural and city, you know. But as far as, you know, I can see on YouTube, they bury these kind of videos. Anything with pro-Confederate flags, they bury the shit out of them. There is like a type of censorship goes on in a different way through Google algorithms. You can actually, you know, see, actually when I put out videos, a lot of times, you might not notice, but down in the notes, sometimes I'll write like paragraphs in there. It's like a whole damn short story. And sometimes it helps the video get around, but it doesn't help if Google tries to bury it with their algorithm. And they're against this, because the big corporations, see, that flag stands against big corporations, because it wasn't really the government per se that came up with the freaking idea of taxing cotton at 235% higher rates from 20% to 47%, it was Wall Street. And don't let them fool you, because Wall Street today is all involved in slavery in one way or another, including on the American citizens. But you know one thing I got pissed off at, because I saw this video on the Confederate flag, pro and con, and they had a black guy in there talking about he was the first guy to get involved in black history studies. He was the first one to get on board with that when it was first offered. And I was thinking to myself, well, cool, do whatever the hell you want, man. It's a free country, float your boat, right? Fine. But he's saying at one side, it's fine for him to freaking study black history, but, and I don't consider this heritage, I consider this far more than heritage. If you're against this flag, you're against every single thing this country stands for, individual freedoms and everything. That whole thing with the slavery issue was a total scam that came on 2 years after the secession happened. And that was, Abe Lincoln's freaking shrewd idea, because to keep England and France out of the war on the side of Confederacy. But here you got this guy I was watching on YouTube. He was black guy talking about he's studying black history, and funded by the state. You'll never hear anything funded by the state about Confederate cause in what it was really about. As a matter of fact, they're taking all out of the history books what 1776 was really about too, right? No tax, no revolt over taxation without representation. This was a secession over taxation without adequate representation. The South was never represented in the North, really, at all, because the 80 to 90% of the money that went into the federal coffers that came from the South, Southern tariffs, was being used to support Northern manufacturing, canal building, railroad right-of-ways, and all that type of stuff. In harbor, improvement of harbors for Northern trade in the merchants. But here this guy's talking like everything associated with this flag is about hate. Yet, and he's saying, even though it's obvious that it has a heritage aspect, it has a Southern Dixie aspect, a regional aspect, and yet he's a guy that was saying, I'm studying Black History Month. And that was the first one. So, I'll tell you what, I'm going to tell you one thing. I really think Black History Month is far more racist than anything in a lot of ways, because I don't understand what it has to do with me, per se. I mean, I got 1% black in me by DNA, but Black History Month is about a subculture in the United States. It's not about the United States. This flag could be about a subculture in the United States when you're talking Southern culture, but this flag is not really about that. It's about getting the people getting screwed over by the big central government. And if you want proof that, Washington, D.C. was out to free to slave slaves, well, look at Washington, D.C.'s policies were under Ulysses S. Grant after they won their war against the South. They went to the West against the plains, Southern and Northern Plains Indians, and subjugated them, the American Native peoples. Now, I'm really hot on the American Native peoples. I think those people really got the raw deal, because this was their freaking land, going all the way back to Delaware tribes in Lenape. But as far as, and then you also had General Sherman, who was the one that did the March to the Sea and burned Atlanta to the ground and all that kind of stuff, and destroyed, a big swath of the South, cut the South in two, destroying everything in sight. His goal was to totally eradicate all the American natives in the West. And he said so on his deathbed, that he was pissed off at that certain white settlers that were preventing him from freaking eradicating every single last one of them. This was the guy that was the Northern Yankee Army that was supposedly freeing the slaves? Yeah, sure, tell me another one, man. So, like I said, everything is upside down the way freaking corporate media tells everything, and it's also being subjugated or pushed in our schools, which I call the John Dewey camps, which is the communist father of modern education, indoctrinating all the kids. So, but I've always had the spirit in me, even though I wasn't on board with the Southern cause many years ago. I was always on board with the live free or die state up in New Hampshire. There was something about New York that, even though I lived there and I was from up near there, I'm talking the New York metropolitan area, very close to Manhattan, I hate it. There's something about it. There's one reason I respected the mafia, because the mafia made their own rules. But the other side of it is this, it's like they're subjugating you and they're telling you a bunch of lies how they're protecting you. And that's not what they're, see what I'm saying? That's the game. This was about non-subjugation of the people. That's what it is. And that's why I like this version of the flag, even though this was never a proper version. If there ever was something, if the Confederacy continued on, or was a rebirth, it would probably be something like this, because this explains it. Don't tread on me. It's far more than a Dixie thing. And actually, I ordered this stuff from Cooters, and I got some stuff coming from my cousin up in Warren County, and I'm going to be sending him one of these "Don't Tread on Me" flags like this. I think it's going to be a 4x6. I'm not sure. And this is a South Carolina one, which is actually, my heritage is from South Carolina during the Confederacy, which were cheap, not much money, man. Freaking $2.99, right? Brass garments and everything, super polyester. South Carolina, kind of a novelty flag. And I would like to see this symbol on all these state flags in the South. The thing is burning me up is like the corporate media has got the black people conditioned that this flag means racial hatred. And they did, over many decades, they took every single example through that they can grab where this flag was used in a racially motivated hate crime or something like that, along those lines. And that's really where it got the image. If you spread your lies enough for enough decades. I mean, yeah, there's some of it's been around, but then again, I could say there's I could tell you that, even people in the government just screwed up. If you want to, I could tell you, like, okay, I support the Florida Sheriff's Association, right? I can tell you right now, there's bad apples in there. I mean, I don't think they're all bad. I don't think they're mostly bad. But if I was the major media and I wanted to make them look like they're all bad, all I got to do is keep putting out every single bad thing they do. That's an example. I don't think they're all good, though. I mean, just like I don't think everybody in the Confederacy was good either. But the basic cause is there. So, and I think that's pretty apt to put that on the back of my car like that. I got one side with the Rebel Confederate flag, "Don't Tread on Me," and the other side with Florida Sheriff's Association. Overall, I'm okay with most of the deputies and sheriffs. You know what I really can't stand is the correctionals yo-yos, because they got the power trip and they own the people and the inmates. So if you're black and you freaking put up with me on this video for this long, I gotta tell you one thing, man. I'm really vehemently against the kind of shit how black people are getting set up in this country on a lot of picky and stupid laws that shouldn't even be freaking crimes. And once they get in the system, they're getting really screwed over by a bunch of power tripping assholes. And I tell you what, the power tripping assholes could be black or white. The cops are generally a hell of a lot better than the goons that are running the system of the people behind bars, which are mainly people of color behind bars, And there's, people of color and whites who run the freaking system. That system, it's a crock of shit, man. And that's another thing I kind of advocate the rebel flag for, because I think the U.S. criminal justice system is criminal itself. It's designed to protect the corporation. The CIA is basically, a lot of it is an arm of Wall Street. See where I'm coming from? I'm not, and I can blatantly tell you, I'm not really a fan of Martin Luther King. I mean, I don't know what the hell he actually did for me. You want to say that's racist? I mean, I'm being honest, man. I don't really think the guy did shit for me, to tell you the truth. Talk about civil rights. We already had civil rights. It's called the Bill of Rights. Trouble is, they weren't, just like every law, they don't apply to everybody equally, especially if you got darker skin, right? I mean, that's a freaking 99% of the problem. If they got a good law in the books, they don't use it right. So, anyway, just being blatantly honest here. And, hey, the truth, man. I'm the type of guy that, you know, if I was in a position of being a cop, and, I mean, I saw a number of abuses on black people, man, I'd be pretty fucking, I'd be letting a lot of shit slide, even though I know I could bust people on it. I would. I mean, there's crimes and then there's bullshit freaking rules, right? You know what I mean? That's how I think. So maybe I got a little bit of that Italian mafia in me too, because I think that goes right along with Confederacy. Don't tread on me. We're going to do our own thing, and the hell with everything else. So I generally support law enforcement, but not all the way. Not all the way, because I know they got rotten apples too. But you know, it's like a complicated thing. Nothing really, there's no one symbol that means one thing. And this Confederate flag, I really kind of like it because right now it's unpopular. And I seem to gravitate to things that are unpopular. As a matter of fact, there might be a 30-something foot flagpole in the back of my yard here by next year that will be visible from the county highway. And it's going to have that version of the flag on it. Don't tread on me.